Friend, happy Wednesday. It's so good to see you today. It's Wednesday, July 3rd, and here in the United States, we are getting ready to celebrate the July 4th weekend. And I know that my Canadian friends just celebrated Canada Day just a couple of days ago. So happy Canada Day to those who celebrate, and happy 4th of July to those in the US that celebrate. So excited to have you with us. All right, so today I've got a really great topic. For those of you who this is your first time tuning in, welcome to Networking Know-How, where we help you network more stress-free like we do in our online networking community, where every Wednesday afternoon between 3:30 and 5:30, I go live, sometimes by myself, sometimes with a guest. Next week, I will have a guest, so fun teaser. But we share tips and tricks on how you can network more effectively and have more meaningful conversations that lead to lasting and authentic relationships. So if you are tired of all of the selling and telling, then you're going to want to tune in every Wednesday afternoon between 3:30 and 5:30 for Networking Know-How. And today is a really good one if you're really tired of that selling and telling, because today we are going to talk about freeing yourself, see the theme, of freeing yourself from being pitch slapped once and for all. So freeing yourself from the pitch slap once and for all. So not only being pitch slapped, but also maybe you are the one doing the pitch slapping. And so I absolutely love this term. It's fun, it's cheeky, which is very on point for down and dirty networking, but it speaks to a definite challenge and problem. When I talk to most people that are typically in traditional networking, they're just tired of the selling and telling, and they feel that they're just being pitch slapped every 2 seconds. And it doesn't matter whether they're in a virtual event that could look in the way that a 30-second commercial is coming across, or chat is just blowing up while all of these pitches and pitches and pitches in chat, buy my stuff, book here, schedule here, or in person, where it's a one-way conversation where someone is simply selling and telling about the thing that they have, and they're only concerned about you purchasing or giving them a lead or making an introduction. That is the definition of a pitch slap, where you're just like, oh my gosh, and it's coming at you fast and furious. They're really not coming up for air. There's no concern whatsoever to what you have to say, what you want or need. It is a one-way conversation. So today, we're going to talk about how you can free yourself from the pitch slap once and for all. And it's 3 simple steps. All right. So step number 1, and get up and chat. I see a couple of you watching live, so thanks for watching live. Get up and chat and tell me, first of all, have you ever been pitch slapped? Let me know. Have you ever been pitch slapped? If so, let me know. Or maybe you're guilty. I'm guilty of being the person who did the pitch slapping. If that's you, no shame in your game. This is a safe environment. Let me know that. But let me know where you're watching from, and join our conversation, because this is a two-way conversation, not a one-way. And if you're watching on replay, please chime in. I do pay attention to every comment, even on replay. It's equally as important to me. All right, so back to the 3 steps. All right, so how to free yourself for being pitch slapped once and for all. So the 3 steps. Number 1, adopt a relational networking mindset. When I first started networking, what I understood networking to be in the corporate space was schmoozing, where you're pitching yourself basically to be assigned to a special project or to get a raise or promotion. You're trying to look good, but it's all about what I can do and show off, what you could do for me. Like, hey, I'm trying to schmooze was more the way that we knew it. So that's how I understood networking in the corporate sense. And then when I got more in the sales space, my boss at the time was measuring my networking based on how many business cards did I get at the event, and how many meetings did I set, how many leads did I get. And it was really the worst way possible to do it. Not only did it feel completely disingenuous to who I am as a person, but being an obedient employee, I did exactly what my boss told me to do, but it felt icky. I didn't like it. And I was very enthusiastic and very obedient. And so I was that horrible person that was pitch slapping at every chance I could get. Hi, my name is by myself. Hi, my name is by myself. I am guaranteeing you it was very annoying. And so for anyone out there that I did that to, I apologize. I have since been working on reversing my karma and what I put out into the world. So how I shifted that. And so if you're the one doing the pitch slapping, if you believe that networking is selling and telling, if you believe I simply need to meet enough people at a networking event, and I will get the sales that I need. I will get the leads that I need. I'll get the introductions that I need. You're not entirely wrong, but you're totally going about it the wrong way. If that is the approach that you're doing, trust me, I did that. Selling and telling is not the approach. So adopt a relational networking mindset. So let's talk about that. All along in my career, growing up in my career, I learned there was that one way of networking. But what I started to realize is there was a different way. And you started hearing people say, well, it's relationships, it's relationships. And so I started leaning on building relationships. And then through the years, I've worked with corporations and clients, and I have learned it's even more deeper than that. Yes, you can build relationships. Yes, there is a proper way to do things if you're in more of that traditional networking space. But what I have come to learn and what I have taught countless clients and what we focus on here in Down and Dirty Networking is there's an entirely different type of networking. So there's traditional or transactional networking where it is transactional focus. And yes, you could be relationship minded. But there's this other thing we call relational networking. And relational networking is learning from and about someone to have a meaningful conversation to build a lasting and authentic relationship. That's the point. And so there's a great saying that says, be interested before you are interesting, right? So be curious about people. If you adopt a relational networking mindset and you want to have a meaningful conversation, first of all, doesn't the energy of that just feel better? So it frees you from feeling icky or salesy because you're going to go in to have a meaningful conversation. And if you have that mindset and you're the one that's being pitch slapped, so if you're not the one perpetrating the pitch slap, but it's coming at you, if you have a relational networking mindset, you're going to know how to respond to build a relationship with this person and get them off the pitch and on to what you really want, a more meaningful connection. And that leads me to tip number 2. So tip number 2 is to leverage one of our core values here at Down and Dirty Networking. Talk less, question more. So first off, if you're the one, like early on when I was doing all the pitch slapping, I developed some open-ended questions that were really great to open up a conversation. Now, I'm not talking about the how are you or what do you do? Those are just, it's small talk. For some people, that can feel like nails on a chalkboard. So I developed a few open-ended questions I'm sure you could do. And I've shared many of them here on our lives. So feel free to watch past on any of our past lives. But one of the best ones is, what is the best thing that's happened to you recently? This has nothing to do with tell me what you do for work. The best thing that happened could be a work related thing, but it often serves a couple of purposes. Number one, you're guaranteed to get a positive response. What's the best thing that's happened to you versus how are you? I'm fine. Or maybe they tell you and it's somewhat negative and you regret that you asked. So what's the best thing that's happened to you recently is a great way to guarantee you get something positive, but you're also going to learn something more meaningful about them. And then you can actively listen and follow up with questions. And we went over that in our last week's live. So if you want to know a little bit deeper dive, how you can really improve your communication, go back and watch last week's live, and you'll be able to make sure you're not making any of those communication mistakes. And how do you take this question to the next level to really have a more meaningful conversation? But that's a good start. But what if you're the one that's being pitch slapped? If that's happening and they're just firing, one of the great things is to ask a question. And so one of the questions that I love to ask is, so tell me, I can tell you're really passionate about what you do. What's something that you're an expert at that you don't do for work, that you don't use on this job? What are you an expert at that you don't use for your job? It is a fabulous question to get to know more about people, and you get to learn what they're an expert at. So now you know something that they're really good at, and you can go deeper with your questions, but also they become a resource for you because if you ever need that expertise, now you know who to go to. And the other thing is it gets them off the pitch because they're no longer talking about the thing that they use for work, but you're still having them talk about themselves and they're feeling confident because they're talking to you about something they're an expert at. What I often find is the person doing the pitching, they've memorized their pitch and they're so concerned of getting all the words in. When you ask this question, it throws them for a loop. And all of a sudden they have to think, like, well, I don't even know. I'm like, surely you're an expert at what comes easy to you. That's a good follow-up question. Most times people don't think they're an expert. I know I don't on a lot of things. I don't think I'm an expert, but some things do come easy for me. Well, here's a little clue. If it comes easy for you, you're probably an expert at it. So that's another way to rephrase that question. Or what are you an expert at? Or what comes easy to you? Now, if they can't think of an answer, a couple of things are going to happen. Either A, they're going to be like, oh, I see so, and they're just going to go talk to somebody else if you're in a live environment, or they're going to disengage because they don't know how to interact in a meaningful way. And so if that's the case, great, you ended the pitch. So it solved that problem for you. And you can move on to something that's more meaningful for you. Or the other thing that could happen is they're going to reciprocate. And they're saying, I don't even have the answer. How would you answer that? And so they're going to ask that back of you. And you can say, well, I don't use this on my job, but what does come easy for me, what I'm expert at is, and you fill in the blank. And so now you've opened up a conversation. And maybe, just maybe, the person that was pitching you was someone like me who didn't feel genuine to do that. They were just doing what they thought they were supposed to do. Maybe they were told to do it that way, like I was. And now you're giving them an opportunity to be more authentically themselves. And now the conversation gets super meaningful. So I really love this question. It gets people off their pitch, and gets them thinking about things that they're good at, still, boosting their confidence and allowing them to talk about something they're really passionate about. So make sure that you talk less, question more, and use it whether you're avoiding trying to prevent yourself from being the person that's pitch slapping, or when it's coming at you. And that leads to number 3. Help them. I am so grateful. I remember walking into this room. So back when I first started, I'm telling you, my boss is measuring my success of the networking events he's sending me to by how many business cards I get and how many appointments that I'm making. How many conversations did I get into that were relevant to my job for the thing that I was trying to do. And so I'm on a mission because I'm going to be graded the next morning on all of these evening events. And I remember going to these events sometimes at lunch or breakfast or evening, but the next day I would always review it with my boss. And I remember I walked in for this one evening and it was very different. Anybody else kind of just, they steered clear of me. Well, I would have steered clear of me. And that's the thing. If you are not getting results, if you're like, oh my gosh, networking doesn't work for me, I'm getting 0 sales, I'm getting 0 leads, you might be the one doing the pitch slapping. You might want to rethink your process, because I guarantee you, if you are focused on that, it's not ever going to work. Not really. If you have more of a relational networking mindset, you actually have more, you talk less and question more, you're going to get better results. You're also going to have a higher reputational capital. And when you have a higher reputational capital and you're known as a resource, you're known as someone who likes things that are more meaningful, even if you're in a traditional networking space, you're going to have a great reputation. And that's how opportunities come to you versus you trying to have to sell and tell through it all. And so number 3, I was just being avoided in all of the other events. And I walked in this room, and this person who I don't know her name, but I do know she was a personal coach. So I always give her credit, remembering her fondly. I was doing what I thought you needed to do. And of course, people were like mingling, and I felt it was clicks and I was the new person. In hindsight, they were running from me because I was selling them to death. I was pitch slapping them. And she just says, you know what? I'm so glad you're here. And she says, how did you find us? She asked a couple other questions to get me off the pitch. So she asked questions just like I'm giving you in step 2. But then she says, you know what? I've been a member of this organization for a while. Let me help you get the best use of your time here. And so she went around and introduced me to people, and she shared what she had heard me say. So for example, if you knew I was an expert at something, if you say, hey, ideas come easy to Laura. She says this is really easy for her and marketing's really easy for her. Oh my gosh, you have been talking about needing some marketing. Why don't you guys have a conversation? Now, at the time, marketing came easy to me, but that wasn't my job. And I said, what comes easy to me is being able to create sales promotions and come up with generate ideas. I think that is something that I did say. And so she introduced me in that fashion, and we had a totally different conversation. And then she'd listen, she'd talk to other people, and then let me talk. And then she goes, okay, Laura, I think you've been talking to so-and-so. I've got someone else I would like you to meet. And she would move me to the next person, doing the exact same thing, giving a great endorsement, but starting the conversation off for me that had nothing to do with my job, so that I was off the pitch. I was on to something that was a little bit more meaningful. Well, I'm all about connecting. I'm all about having more meaningful. So it took me out of that very awkward state, that very disingenuous state, that very inauthentic state for me. And I felt so much more comfortable. And I was enjoying it so much more. And I was having meaningful conversations, and nobody was running away from me anymore. When I'm driving home from this event and I'm, reeling in my brain and debriefing what went right and what didn't, I realized, oh my gosh, this woman actually corrected me in a really gentle way. Instead of telling me, oh, this doesn't work, or just running away from me, she very strategically guided me to introduce people and ask me questions, and then use that information to start those conversations with the people to show me the most effective way to use the room, the most effective way to get the most bang for my buck in that room. And I so appreciated that. And that is where I started learning there is this other way of networking called relational networking. And it's when I started to really develop this approach that we are founded on here in Down and Dirty Networking. We are 100% relational networking. We do not allow sales pitches or 30-second commercials. We curate meaningful conversations in our events, and we do all the heavy lifting. So just like that woman was going around doing the heavy lifting for me and introducing me and giving me topics of conversation, we do that. And that's the format of our events. They're fun and they're not mind numbing. And so this is how you get rid of the pitch once and for all. So if you want to avoid pitch slapping and being the one who does it or the one who's receiving it, those are the 3 tips I'm going to tell you. So let me know in the chat if you love this. I can still see some people watching live, so I really appreciate you. And if you're sitting there going, oh my gosh, Laura, I think I've been pitch slapping everybody, you're okay. Now, what if you were like me? At that moment, my dad was sick. I was the financial breadwinner. And so money was an issue for me. And so I was really focused on the dollar. If that's you and you're like, yeah, but Laura, I really need to make some money. I promise you, you will attract more opportunities with relational networking mindset and taking the relational networking approach than if you do more of the selling and telling. I promise you. Now, if you don't believe me, I've got a great resource. Drop the words, Laura, I need help. Just drop the words help, or message me a private message and let me know what it is that you're working on. And I will show you the step-by-step approach that I did and give you a framework that will get you what you need, but in a way that's more genuine and authentic for you without having to feel all salesy and like people say at networking. When I ask anyone what they think of networking, especially in the selling and telling space, they're like, oh, it drives me nuts. So here's how you can free yourself from the pitch slap, still attract the things that you want, raise your reputational capital, and absolutely enjoy what it is that you do. So just to recap, you want to make sure, number one, you embrace a relational networking mindset. Number two, you want to talk less, question more. And number three, you want to help them. It is the easiest way for you to be able to be known. Very quickly after I started doing more of that networking and learned to get off the pitch slapping, because I had figured it out. Anybody who showed up and did the pitch and sell and tell, they'd be like, Laura, I think you need to help this person. And I would call them up and say, hey, I understand you were there and so introduced us and I feel like they think I can help you. And so they would come at me with their pitch generally. Never mind the question I would ask them. What's the number one challenge? What's your number one objective with networking? They would say selling. I say, okay, would you mind if I give you a couple quick tips? Here's what I learned the hard way. Here's how I can streamline this process for you. And it was so interesting. People actually thought that at the time I was a networking coach, and I wasn't. I just had learned the hard way. And so it's no surprise that fast forward for double digit years, I was teaching corporations. So for 16 years, I taught companies and entrepreneurs how to network. And now I've created Down and Dirty Networking, where there's a community where you can just experience what it's like. Instead of having to sift and sort through all the people that are pitch slapping you, we remove all of that and we give you that safe space in our community. And so I've opted, instead of continuing to train for it, to actually create the experience that I was missing and that I knew could exist, and have a more meaningful approach, more of a mini mastermind kind of experience. But it all starts with the mindset, because I believe networking is a skill and activity and a mindset. And if you have a selling and telling mindset, if you have a pitch slap mindset, you're going to repel people. And so I really hope this is helpful. I hope this gives you some guidance so that you can pivot off being the seller and teller, but still being able to be seen and known and attract opportunities versus having to chase them. And then for those of you that have been in the networking space for a while and you're like, oh, I'm so tired of the pitches, here's how you can get off of them. Build a relationship, have a couple of questions ready to get them off the pitch and then help them. You're going to feel so much better helping them. They're going to so appreciate it. I mean, look, it's been many years. I'm still thinking of this coach and just saying happy vibes and prayers to her because she was just so helpful to me and sharing it along the way. Of those that I've done it to, I'm still connected to several. Now, every now and again, I get someone who's just adamant they want to continue pitch slapping. They go ahead. You can go ahead and do that. That's up to you. But I'm going to tell you, you'll be much more effective if you choose a more relational approach. All right. I hope this was helpful. If it is, give me a thumbs up. Go ahead and tag a friend and stay tuned because next week I've got a guest. I've got a very special guest coming. We're going to have a wonderful conversation. So make sure you tune in somewhere between 3:30 and 5:30 Central Standard Time. We go live and you'll be able to get to meet this very special guest. And for those of you who are still celebrating Canada Day or 4th of July coming up tomorrow, happy holidays, happy safe holidays for all of you. And if you're interested in more of our tips, make sure to check out our Down and Dirty Networking YouTube channel where we have curated playlists for you to look at all of our networking tips. And make sure to like and follow our LinkedIn and Facebook pages for Down and Dirty Networking. We just dropped a really great article tomorrow that's going to be dropping. We also have a newsletter that's dropping that gives us a bunch of different tips. So stay tuned. There's a lot of information up there to help you network more effectively, like we do in our Down and Dirty Networking online community. And if you're interested about our community, which we only open up less than 5 times a year. We only have 4 times that the community is open to the public. Stay tuned. We'll be having some information for you next week, a little bit more about how you can test drive, how you can come into our next Conversations and Connections event. It's our public event happening in July. So stay tuned next week for the details. And until then, I hope you have a wonderful holiday, a wonderful weekend if you're not in the US or Canada, because we do appreciate all of our global friends. And know that I'm only a message away. If there's some way that I can help you network in a more meaningful way, by all means, let me know. All right. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. And until next Wednesday, happy networking.